thing that I wanted to do before we got into some comedy, and then we'll do some meditating and some journaling, some more music, is Nicole and I pulled up, and I'll pull it up here. We pulled up basically the chart of the day that the Declaration of Independence was signed and compared it to the eclipse that we just experienced yesterday that we're currently experiencing now. And the similarities are alarming, and the differences are also, I think, really important to note. So I'm going to throw it to you, Nicole.
Honestly, yeah, the fact that we're in such a similar energy, like, all right, the sun's in Cancer, we're in Cancer season right now, right? If you can see the little chart that Sarah pulled up, anything and look at the chart. That's why the chart of when the date it was signed is actually pretty influential and pretty important, because it sets up that whole vibration of like how it's going to be expressed. And so now, just to get into it, Chiron was in the first house of Aries for this signing, and Chiron's in Aries right now. So cool. What does that mean? I mean, literally looking at this chart, it is looking like a big baby. And America really is a big baby in a lot of ways. Like, we can see the effort, like and I'm just going to say this as if I was reading a chart just for somebody. There's a lot of effort there that is involved with actually trying to make changes, like Mars and Gemini and Uranus and Gemini. There was a huge change that happened socially when this was signed, right? And at that time, it was such a big deal, but now we're revisiting this Gemini energy to actually change the Constitution for real in favor of us and the changes that we have now. So, because when you said, and they were thinking about the collective, they were thinking about the group, but there was when they signed it, the North Node was in Leo, which is very showboaty, and it's in the 5th house. So it was like, we're going to do this for the people, but we're going to show off because we're literally the best, and we'll always be the best. So there was this big achieving energy that this Constitution was designed to make, really just to be prideful and to have like this energy be the example for the rest of the world. But now when we look at it, the North Node now is in Gemini. So that's one major difference between when the Constitution got signed till now. Right now, the focus is actually on the people even more than it was then. So there was this energy that they were trying to, but now we see that the community matters more, not just our individual self. So now, yes, our individual self within the community, of course, matters. But now it's aligned with, you know, not being the best nation of the world, but being in partnership with the rest of the world as well. So that's like one focus that and as we do like our own, and this is something to think about, like how good of a neighbor are we, right? Because there are some things in the Constitution that we talk about being a good neighbor, but it was kind of disguised with this energy of, like I said, for the people and for everybody else, when in reality, it wasn't. Now Uranus is in Taurus, which makes a big change as well, because Uranus was in Gemini on Venus, how we're seeing now. So, okay, now to get into that, Uranus in Taurus is changing our money and it's changing our values. So we finally get to re-examine all of the values that we thought, the good intentions that we thought we were going to do, and that we thought we were going to, or not us per se, but everybody else who's in this actual picture, and the vision that they had. But now we actually have to see the change in money. Now, and you could tell me, Sarah, when the declaration was signed, now if the focus was on people and the focus was on literally being the best and beating all competition, where we see the energy going now is actually way more family oriented as well. So instead of, and then we have all of these conspiracies as well, talking about how if we partner with the rest of the world, if we all join forces, then where does that leave us? Is that like is that in favor of us or not? Well, we kind of can't escape that energy. So we're actually going to be moving towards like this one world perspective, regardless of whether we believe it's good or not. Like a lot of the borders in quotation marks will be lifted, and we won't have as many restrictions on how we travel, which is probably years to come. But as of right now, when we're looking at how the energy is so similar, but just that little shift in perspective, we're feeling the same energy then. Is that the people uprising? Everybody wants the change. Everybody's screaming for it. Like we feel turned up. We feel energized, and we want to see like this revolution play out. And but we have actually, the energy is in our favor to have everything actually exposed. Now we can't hide from the changes that are actually exposing all of the details and all of the truth that we've been living under. So in general, the one thing that we will come up with is to see that Chiron in Aries, which was the identity crisis that they really had. So
wait, real quick, let me throw something else at you that's going to really blow your mind here. Our rising right now is in Aries. Chiron's going over our identity. The rising of July 5th, 1776 was in Sagittarius. So actually the South Node is moving. Now the South Node is moving out of that Cancer Capricorn conversation that we've been talking about. So for anybody just catching up, the nodes represent collective fate points, right? The nodes represent like where the collective is headed and what the collective is letting go of. So right now the nodes have just finished a 2.5-year Cancer Capricorn cycle. So wherever Cancer and Capricorn are in your chart have been getting a huge upgrade, a huge makeover. We've been focusing our energy towards Cancer, going like, wait a second, I think I'm sick. I think you're sick. I think we're all sick. We need to go home. The universe did it for us. We've been stuck home. We're quarantined. And we've actually been, what's interesting is I heard an astrologer say, or maybe it was Unical, but we were talking about how there's something really, the karmic energy being so built up in Capricorn and Cancer as it has been is actually showing us in this moment of quarantine, like what our baseline family structures are. So there's something similar about the way that you're experiencing this moment and the issues that you have or had with your family structure. It could be that you're totally disconnected from them. It could be that you're, in my case, I'm totally enmeshed. They're going to come in at least 3 to 4 times, although they may not, because I've thrown my own, USA temper tantrum. Don't fucking, if it looks like I'm like talking to people online, and don't fucking come in, like there's a difference between when I'm texting or when I'm like, I'm like, you think I'm just looking at the computer? Like, this is fucking stupid, right? So, just like, leave me alone. Okay. But so, anyway, the point is that the collective has been pointing us in the direction of look at what home means to you.
Yeah.
And let go of the, it's like just noticing where that structure, that South Node in Capricorn has been going, okay, look what home means and where does it still hurt, and look at the structures that are making it still hurt, or what are the toxic ideas or storylines or even just behaviors that we keep repeating and repeating and repeating, and we don't really know why. It's like we think we should grow, but then we can't. Well, I want to take everybody off the hook. Sometimes growth is not, as we know from my flowers that have all seemed to never grow, crazy. The plants growing takes time. Seeds take time to plant, and it doesn't happen that fast. So it's like we started this Cancer Capricorn cycle going, I want to be home. I want to really take care of myself. I'm doing self-care. I'm doing nurture. We've had more retrogrades than we've maybe experienced in our life so far in the course of those 3 years. And retrogrades are when we review. So anytime there was a retrograde, it was going in whatever area of the chart it was in, it was going, okay, but in terms of love and money, how's this? Okay, but in terms of your work ethic, how's this? Okay, but communication, right? Like, so we were talking about Mercury retrograde has been going on right now, and we keep getting cut off on IG Live. And now I'm like, great, we do commercials here. It's all small segments, right? I don't have a podcast. I don't have podcast equipment. So we're making IG Live work, And so the bottom line is whatever it is that you actually have to work with, now you know what you have to work with. You know what your resources at home are. Yes. And what's going on is this like South Node purge in Capricorn has been going on for the last 2.5 years. The nodes finally moved out, but this whole year is basically like the way that the U.S. Constitution or the Declaration of Independence was signed on this day and time that we have here. We'll send it to you, but it was sort of like a bit of a hissy fit energy, a bit of a little bitch fit tantrum. This is actually what we're experiencing is a bit of like, it's been like a parent, it's a father tantrum. All of this energy in Capricorn is like, right? And it's just like, no, we're going to stay in our shit. We're going to stay in our shit. So every time you think you grew and then you didn't, it's fine. You're still in the ocean. You're still in the water. You don't have to actually commit to any place in time just yet, but you have to really become conscious of what is no longer, but you're still acting like is, and what beliefs are actually keeping you exactly where you are. Because now we are literally like, this whole quarantine has become, aside from the very real the realities of like how terrifying the world is. It actually is sort of like and I'm glad Lucia is here to lead, because it really is become sort of an imagination playground, right? When you're home with yourself, whether it's with your family or your roommates and you're trying to get out of, trying to escape them, or you're just alone and you're fucking quarantined and like the only thing to do socially is to like protest, which great, but it seems like an extreme choice. Either protest and put your life on the line, or stay home and don't put your life on the line, right? Which is so strange. It's just an interesting coincidence. Hi, Amy. So anyhow, I think it's worth noting that when did the nodes shift?
The node shift last month.
Okay, so the nodes literally, like last month. So the nodes just shifted out of Cancer Capricorn right before these last two eclipses. So these last two eclipses were kind of like that, when like the fight's over, but then you're like, I'm just going to say that last thing, it rhymes or whatever. Like you just got to get that good one out. These two last eclipses are showing us where we're just trying to get it out. Like, wait a second, here's my roast. And it's like, yo, that guy already got for pedophilia anyway. You're not even roasting him. It's not even what, it's like, so this is not a time to like necessarily roast yourself, but it is a time to really take a look at what's going on in your environment. And thank God these eclipses have now shifted, because now the South Node is in Sagittarius, which is our collective belief systems. It's religion. It's truth with a capital T, which obviously we all never even fucking experienced in our lives. What? Yeah. And the North Node is in Gemini, going, look at your neighbors, look at your community. Let's talk about what's actually going on and what we can see with our eyes and feel with our hearts. And let's actually play with like mental space between each other, because we have so much of it now. We have so much mental space between us. We can really actually see the energy working. We can play with telepathy in a little bit more fun way. You don't have to commute. There's nothing really else on your mind, right? We can play with journaling or getting over things, or meditation, because gosh, at this point, meditating for an hour seems like a whole way to fill the calendar. It's kind of like, yeah, okay, so I can meditate. If the calendar is sleeping, I'm in, so we're really working with these storylines and changing them. And what Nicole was saying is so right, that like, okay, so in Gemini, what was in Gemini when the US was did you say Mars was in Gemini?
Venus, right? But then Uranus was in Gemini.
Oh, so interesting. Okay, so Venus represents like money, love, sort of like the divine feminine energy. So Venus being in Gemini is significant. One, because it really does show that all the men are gay. No, but it does show that, thank you, Haywood. It does show that there's duality in everything. And we actually, flirting is normal. And the reason we're in America in the first place is because we just wanted to get out and, meet people or whatever. It's a nice way to put it, but meet people and kill them. Okay. So
and this is like the child, right, throwing the tantrum, but now we've reached like puberty with our constitution, where now that you're hitting that puberty, it's like, okay, well, who am I really? I thought I knew who I was, and I thought I knew what I wanted, but now I don't know anymore. Things feel different. Things feel strange. And now it's like, okay, adjusting to that and really changing what's around us to actually support us. Like getting your period for the first time, you got to wear pads, you got to wear a tampon.
Just thinking that.
You really don't know what you want to do. And it's like, okay, now we have to experiment, which is also the Gemini energy allowing us with the node shifting to really experiment and really play around for at least this next year, where we don't have to think that things are going to stick. So this whole rewriting is really happening within our own homes first, which then will dictate outside, which was the opposite of what it was. Then it was like, okay, we're going to tell you how many kids you should have. You should only have 1 kid and a half and live in a home with a car and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But now it's like, well, maybe that's not the case. Now we're going to see people who want to live with like a village and like move out and buy their own land and like start to have their own laws and actually assimilate with everybody else, but through technology, which is what we really didn't have then.
At that time, because
so it was about like in theory it was about being for everybody, but it was actually like really not honoring literal individual people at all, whereas the country was like, no, we're the individual country, and it's like, okay, but it's made up of other people, so the difference is now technology has caught up. So Saturn actually shows us where our limitations are. It's not necessarily that you're like fucked in that area, but it means you actually have to work with that problem until you actually create a solution, or you build your life around the lessons that you learned working on that problem, right? We can't escape our Saturns. We have to do our Saturn. So it's like at that time, the world was trying to connect, but it actually didn't have the technology to. Now Saturn is about to move into Aquarius in December for the next, what is like 2.5 years, 2 years. And so for that period of time, we're actually going to see, you know, a lot of the structures that were written in this document. And I'll tell you more later because we can get into comedy. But in terms of this, you know,
it's like
the Constitution. Sorry, go ahead.
The things you thought were dead are going to get resurrected, and then you get to just see it again, and then we get that decision point. But we have to give it time in order for it to come up to the surface, because a lot of these roots were written a very long time ago. A lot of people think a lot of stuff in the Constitution doesn't even apply anymore, but it really still kind of does. This is literally our Constitution that we've been living under. We've been living it so hard. We've been the program so hard. We couldn't see how much we were actually following that script and following those rules. And now we're like, oh, okay. Now as it starts to come up with whatever, like I said, that puberty energy of like all of the people scrambling is like the hormones, and literally it's all coming up. So it's like we have to hear and we have to listen, and there's no way to hide anymore with the ability to broadcast and the ability to like spread information. So nothing is going to be hidden in that sense, where now you see that Pluto was in Capricorn as well when they signed it, and Pluto's in Capricorn right now. So they were taking a stab at changing the whole structure, but now we literally are changing it again. If looking at this astrology is going to do anything for you, it's going to show you how real we have power right now, which a lot of people are trying to struggle with. Well, are we really going to see the changes or not? But we are. This isn't going away anytime soon. The fact that Pluto is hitting Pluto where it was then is now literally just showing us all the flaws that were put into it at that time. So now that we can see, which this is what this year is about, flaws, really. This year is heavily about flaws, all of our personal flaws, our family flaws, and the flaws that, you know, we've been under. But
I'm flawed. I'm flawed. How about you guys?
Yeah, and literally all we're really doing right now is calling out, which is the very important Gemini energy and all of this other stuff that has accumulated in Gemini. We're going to re-spark the people who still believe this is real. So we have to see them come out with their negativity as well, because if they don't come out with their negativity, it'll be really easy for them to slip under the radar and move into this new world that we are actually building. So let's see what happens on that front. But it's going to be interesting to make our own and go with our own energy from this point on. Literally, the rules are all broken, and we just have to make our own and really live by it and see what happens.
And the last thing I'll say before we enter your comedy portion is that in the research I did, it actually turns out that the Declaration of Independence, okay, so it was signed on July 4th, 1776, but then it actually meant that declaration was moved into the next branch of Congress. So it actually only passed in Congress, basically. It didn't pass in this, I don't think they called it the Senate then yet, but whatever that, then the second Congressional Congress was or whatever. So actually that happened. They revised it and reviewed it, and they did that on August 2nd. So we're going to do some exercises later where we start to rewrite our own. Con seems like a little bit like con artist. It seems like sort of negative in vibration. So we're just gonna switch out like I did with the songs. We're just gonna throw in moon instead of con, sort of like a pro and con, but it's moon and con, which also works. Yeah. And we're going to actually
think about that, right? Constitution, and what's the opposite? Prostitution.
Whoa!
Literally.
Whoa!
So those Constitution, prostitution, and we've been using all of the language wrong. Like we really have been using it in the exact opposite ways. Like what is prostitution really versus like con and constitution? So that's just food for thought. And this is why I like putting the moon there, at least, because at least that's honoring our natural vibration, like something natural. We really, the moon was here. The moon dictates the water in our body. So that's something that is not really us giving the definition to. Try to take away the power of words as much as possible, because even the Constitution is a whole spell. It's a manifesto, literally, and it was called a manifesto. So they knew what they wanted, and they got it. But now we get to see, well, this is what they wanted. Now what do we want? Literally, what do we want?
It's literally like when you just tell your parents, like, we don't watch that news station anymore, or like we don't watch any of the news stations anymore, I guess. You know, I don't know what is real. Like, I don't know. We only watch the Moonual is what we're telling the parents from now on. So I think that's, if anybody wants to write that down, take a minute. we're going to do an exercise later where we write a draft of our moon institutions. If anybody doesn't know what their moon sign is, just throw your birthday in the chat and I will look it up for you while I'm also listening to the comedians. But I will tell you what your moon sign is, because then we're going to come back and talk about what your moon sign actually means, how to work with it, and then we're going to actually start to rewrite our moon institutions, sign a declaration of moon dependence, and, you know, I don't know, party all night long. Throw your year into. I need your birthday, your time, your place. I need as much information as possible to get you the most accurate moment of moon grist. Moon grist. I don't know. I'll work on it. I got distracted by the tech. Okay, so